Okay, welcome, Catherine. Lovely
Thank
to
you.
have you here. So I feel honoured to have you here, and I really want to know more about you and your business. So do you want to introduce yourself to start with and tell us a bit about your business?
Okay, all right. So my name is Catherine Hall, and I have two hats really. So yes, I have a coaching business, but actually part of it is my nursing background as well, and that's how things have come about. But I'm a nurse practitioner. I work part-time, and I'm also a health and wellbeing coach.
Okay. So that's really interesting about being a life coach. And I often wonder what that actually means. So to start with, what prompted you to become a life coach, and what really helped you, what kind of motivated you to want to help clients stay focused, for their lives? So
Sure.
is there a backstory to all of that?
There is a backstory, and it does go, and it does relate to my job as a nurse. So, and I can track it back, and that was in the late 80s, early 90s. I was working as a practice nurse in a GP practice, and I was involved with doing multiple health checks, half an hour checks, blood pressure, weight, cholesterol, advice, exercise, stop smoking, the whole thing. And I would watch these people sort of glaze over, and it was like, oh dear, I've lost them. Even if there was something that perhaps would have been a benefit to change at that time, I knew that I had lost them in some way and I wasn't getting anywhere. And then something happened. I believe it was my stop smoking training that did it, was that I came across a model of change. And that was by some people called Prochaska and DiClemente. I always remember it, Prochaska and DiClemente. And basically what that explained very simply is that there's a cycle that we go through when we make any changes in life. And what that did was change everything for me. It changed the way I worked, and it changed the results that I got from people. Because at the end of the day, the elements to that are that somebody may not be interested in thinking about making any changes, and that's fine. My aim as a health professional and a coach is to just perhaps to nudge them towards maybe thinking about things. If somebody was thinking about things, then it would be to actually will put things into action to make it happen. And a natural part of this, and perhaps this will come up later in the conversation, is that setbacks and failure are actually part of that cycle, and then get back on the bike to actually get going again, and maybe take a different path or not. But that model completely and utterly changed everything for me, and it took the pressure off. It took
Yeah.
the pressure off me saying things that weren't necessary. If it was obvious that somebody actually wanted to stop smoking, or they wanted to improve their eating, or they wanted to lose weight, whatever it was, then we could go with that and then move them to the next point of actually putting things in place that they'd set, and monitoring people so that they were accountable for what they were doing. So that was the springboard of what I did. And then I did do must be 20 years ago, an online training for coaching, but my actual main training was in 2019, and it has completely transformed the way I work and the way that I deal with people and the results that they get.
Okay, that's really interesting. And you're right. I think that you've got to want to make that change. So something's got to prompt you to do it. And I remember last year when I got my diagnosis and I wasn't very well, that I knew I needed to lose some weight. And at that point in time, it was a very powerful emotion. So it was easier to do. Roll on now a year later, and I'm really struggling. But at the same time, I know for the sake of my health, it's so important that I continue to lose weight. So we've had a bit of a blip, but like you say, it's a learning lesson, isn't it? And it's about
It is.
getting back on it and
Yeah.
working out what worked last time and what didn't work last time. And I think last time with losing weight was I was too regimented almost, and too
Okay.
wouldn't flex. So if something came out of the blue, that was it. I just couldn't cope with it. So, and then I'd fall off the bandwagon. And I think that's what a lot of people do, to be honest. It's either all or nothing, isn't it? So,
True.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I think definitely having somebody to help you and support you and nudge you sometimes, hold you accountable sometimes helps as well.
Completely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because we're only human. We're only human. You know,
exactly.
things are going to come up and things are going to get in the way. You know, the children, the family, your job, things are always going to be there. But if you've got somebody on your shoulder and you know that actually you've set any goals or intentions that are set by a person are their decisions. You know, this
That's right.
isn't, that's to make that very clear about coaching is actually the decisions are evolve, and it's very much about what that person wants to achieve, but it's also keeping very mindful about the fact that it's you can use the SMART analogy type thing, but it's achievable. You know, it's stretching us a little bit, but it's still achievable. And that stretching doesn't put us in a point of risk where we're going to automatically fail, all right, but it will enable us to be stretched just outside our comfort zone to make it achievable. And that's going to increase somebody's confidence, going to increase their self-esteem. And when setbacks do happen, it will improve somebody's resilience, because they'll bounce back, because we've not taken such a big step that actually everything falls apart.
Yeah, and that's really good point. And that sounds like how you approach helping clients build those qualities in them so that they believe in themselves well and know that they can bounce back clearly.
Because I deal with a lot of people who perhaps at times are at their lowest ebb, all right, who feel really quite stuck and overwhelmed. So it's not an easy clientele, whether that's within my nursing role or as clients to work with, because people don't think that they can do it. So what my aim is to build foundations, strong foundations. And that's to do with ensuring, not going from a weight management point of view, but ensuring that we eat well, the best quality food that we can, that we move, whatever that might mean, that we have a decent sleep, and that we have the ability to rest and allow us or give ourselves the space that we need emotionally and physically. And that is a sort of encompasses really the basics that we all need in life. Now, if we can get those in place, and we're not going to get them right all the time, but if we can get those in place, it is like the foundations of a house, the pillars, we're going to add stability. So over time, that stability will grow. And if there are wobbles, and there always will be, because that's life, all right, we have the ability to bounce back. And we have the ability to, yes, things haven't gone right. Okay, fine, but we can get back on again. So for me, the foundations are absolutely crucial. Somebody might want to, have a goal in life. They might have something that they want to achieve, and it could be seem quite far-reaching, and they may not necessarily take into account the importance of establishing strong foundations and just go ahead with things. And the chances are it won't work out. It won't work out. And so they're going to, perhaps step back much further than they would have done if they have had, this stability there. So for me, that's a lot of the work that I do. It's enabling people that strength. Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense, because when we're tired, our resistance is lower. Everything seems much harder. It's like wading in treacle, isn't it? We don't see things as rationally as we do when we've, had enough sleep. So sleep is the key one, I think, to me. It makes a huge difference to how I view the world, I view life, how I bounce back as well. So yeah, I think those foundations that you're talking about are really important. So have you had a client, a success story with a client who was feeling lost, but they managed to transform their life through your coaching?
Yes, yep. Obviously numerous people. With regards, somebody quite specifically was a lady, I won't say too much, but in her 40s, who had was very lost within her job role, actually, and her purpose. Things didn't feel right. She didn't feel that she was doing it's hard to explain. She didn't feel that what she was doing was really where she wanted to be.
Yeah.
So by exploring where those thoughts came from, we were able to sort of work through things. And over a period of time, she actually changed what she was doing, how she was thinking. And I think that's the other important thing about this is we can look at our lives and become very overwhelmed by the different aspects. So many things you might want to do and may want to change. And in order to prevent somebody becoming more overwhelmed, it's really maybe just to break it down even further. So to look at maybe somebody's health, their relationships, whether their wealth, their career, or, stroke, retirement, and break it down to smaller little chunks, and then choose one thing that perhaps they might want to change. Because ultimately, any changes we make in one area of our life will undoubtedly impact others. And I think that's the minute we start to think and view things differently, our energy changes, and our energy, it's like a domino effect. Things will just automatically change, because that's just the way things are. Yeah,
no, I agree. And I think bite-sized chunks is how I view it. So it's the same philosophy as I use in my leadership and management, in the fact that you break it down into bite size and you get to the root of the real problems, and then you just tackle one at a time, and then you see what that ripple effect is. And so I think that that's a really good point. Yeah, totally.
I'd just like to bring up something as well with regards coaching stroke counselling. Obviously, counselling is a very different thing.
Yeah, very much so.
I had years of it on and off in my lifetime. But counselling is very much looking at perhaps the past and trying to make sense of perhaps what's happened to us. Whereas coaching is looking at the now. And it's looking at where we are now, what we have with us, what resources we have, and moving forward. That's not to say we don't look back, because we do, but it's purely as a reference point. So just as an example, if somebody stated that, things started to go wrong at a particular time in their lives, all right? And I would ask them, what was going on then? What was happening? Could have been 2 years ago, could have been 20 years ago. What was going on? And that backstory, quite subconsciously, could still be impacting that person today. So it's purely as a reference point. It's purely to add a different dimension to where we're at now.
Yeah, and that makes total sense, because, as you say, it could be impacting them still. And I certainly know from my leadership and management days that you would perhaps have a team member who was having a few issues. And when you actually had a one-to-one with them and you were very curious and you drilled down to what was going on with them, it often went back to years ago and something that had never been resolved, or some health issue that had happened and was still impacting them. So it's really important to understand that before you can move forward, I always think.
Absolutely. And also the views, opinions, and beliefs of other people, our family, friends, media, religion, can all affect us. And it can be so deeply ingrained in us that we actually don't see it, because we actually believe that it is the truth, or it's a belief that we personally hold. So it's only when we start to take, it's like the layers on the onion, isn't it? When you start to unpeel things, that things become apparent. And also it's the people can see, actually that's not how I feel. It's how my mum felt, or my dad, or my husband, or whatever. And but it's not how I am. But obviously we can be impacted by those around us. They say that you become the person that you surround yourself, the people you surround yourself with. And sometimes, again, that awareness enables us to surround ourselves with people who back us and who keep us sane and want us to do well in life. So all these things are very important.
Yeah, no, I would agree. That's right. So you talk about self-discovery is a big part of personal growth. So what methods do you use to help your clients discover their true passions and desires?
I think, first of all, it's actually, you've said the word passion, is actually allowing somebody, giving them permission to actually really tap into what they're passionate about. And again, the views, opinions of other people may squash people. All right. And I will give an example, actually. This is a young lad that I met a few years ago now, but he's somebody I never forgot. And he actually presented to me with sleeping issues. That was his main thing. There was lots of other stuff going on as well. He was, not eating well. He wasn't sleeping well. His mood was terrible. And he was in a job that was very lucrative, but he wasn't happy. You could see that. And he kept coming back to that. Oh, well, I've got to do this because, it's the money's good and all the rest of it. And I said to him, what is it you want to do? Where's your passion? Where's your passion lie? And he told me that he wrote music, that he wrote and he played instruments, and that just a few years before, he was on the verge of actually setting up a YouTube channel and publishing his things. He got involved with somebody. When he's told to her and family and friends, they said, what are you doing that about? What are you doing that for? Why are you getting involved with that? And you've guessed it, he never went ahead with it. But the impact of that was that he became unwell. It was something intrinsically wrong in that he wasn't following his passion. He wasn't doing what he needed to do to fill his soul, really, and give him joy. So when I ask people to find their passion, first of all, very often it can come out in a conversation like that, but it's sometimes perhaps a little written exercise where somebody can write down the things that they're really good at. It doesn't mean that they enjoy them, but they're good at, boiling an egg, driving a car, whatever it is, organizing things. And then on another piece of paper, actually write down what they really enjoy and what they get passionate. And sometimes the two things can marry, and that can give them a lead, particularly when it's related to a job, a lead of what, path they might want to take. So it's just tapping into what makes somebody happy as well. I love dancing. I don't do so much as I used to, but I love going dancing. It makes me feel happy and it makes me feel great. And if I feel great, then it, again, like we said earlier, it has an impact on how I am and then on everybody else around me. So if I didn't do the things that made me happy or gave me joy, or I had a passion about whatever that might be, then I'm not going to feel great. And I think that can impact every aspect of our lives.
No, I would agree. And kind of thinking about it, what I very much concentrate on is strengths in the workplace, because when you're using your strengths, then you feel very passionate and you feel very, very motivated to carry on and do them. And I don't think enough workplaces still look at the strengths of their employees. And certainly from a manager or a leader point of view, you need to understand what the strengths of each team member is and encourage them to use them more. And I'm really against this, let's make weaknesses better, because we're never going to improve them much. We might start here, we might go up fractionally, but we're never, ever going to really, really get them to where we need to be. So
and I mean, as I say, as a team, you're going to have people with different strengths, aren't you? And as individuals, we have different strengths. And it is very much building on those rather than, like you say, trying to concentrate on the things that we're not that are not going well. It's actually looking at the things that are going well and going well.
It really is about knowing. So you yourself need to know, I think. And I think, getting them to do exercises sounds like a real plus, because we don't often have time to stop and think ourselves. So if we're actually having some coaching and we can do that in the coaching session, then that's a bonus, isn't it? Because when you know what your strengths, what your passion is, you can tap into it more. And it definitely does make you happier. Definitely.
And I think people may not, they may not realize what strengths they do have, because they're just there. And it's only when you've got somebody else, like a leader like yourself, or another work colleague or a coach, is that you see how people are and can pick up on things, because that person may actually not recognize it themselves. And when they do, when they are, it is highlighted, then again, the energy in that person will change. And that's, again, how things move forward. And often with some speed, the transformation that people can go through can often be quite quick. For others, it's a bit of a slower process because they're holding on to things that have tied them down for so long. It takes a long time to let go. But generally, that's how the transformations can occur.
It is, and isn't it weird, because we can often get told something in the past, like you've talked about this lad, but also I can remember being told in a meeting, after a meeting by my manager of the time, that I talked a load of rubbish, and that I had nothing worthy to contribute. Not very
Wow.
constructive at all. And so for 2 years I went into meetings and I said nothing, which was so unlike me, I have to say. But for two years I actually stopped. And then I had a manager who said to me, Nicola, why do you never contribute in meetings? Because I know you've got good ideas and I know you're good at this kind of area. And I went, because I was told I was rubbish. And he goes, but that was just her perception. And this is the trouble. We let ourselves be influenced by people, don't we?
We do, but it is easy to get influenced by people, isn't it? And like I said earlier, we become the people that we surround ourselves with.
Yeah.
And it's only when we have insight that actually and intuitively know that perhaps something might be said to us, like intuitively you perhaps knew that actually, well, that wasn't true.
Yeah.
But unless you actually can build on that intuition and actually believe in yourself and have a real unshakable belief in yourself, to seek support or ideas from other places, you will continue to perhaps not excel or do the things that intrinsically you can.
Exactly. And you do see it, once people understand what their strengths, what their passions are, they start to really come across as much more confident, much more happy. So it's just a bonus. And it's a bonus in the workplace when you've got people like that.
And it's easy, isn't it? Isn't it easy to pick out somebody's strengths and guide them and support them and encourage them? You don't need anything else because it's already there. Excuse me.
Right. It's so easy. And I think this is where constructive feedback also comes in, is that we have a tendency to do just a global feedback. And instead, if we're very specific about what we're seeing and what they're actually doing well with that, when you did this is what I saw, and this is how good that is, then that starts to build them up to understand their strengths better too, and their passions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sometimes people fear taking control of their lives due to uncertainty. So how do you help clients embrace that uncertainty and use it as a stepping stone rather than an obstacle?
I think it's a hard one to explain, isn't it? Uncertainty is just part of life, isn't it? And if we can let go of wanting everything to be right and perfect, and we can just go with the vision that we've got and see where it takes us, then that's where things will start to work. If we have huge uncertainty in our life, it is just one of the things that keeps us very stuck. And I think the other thing is to sort of look at, well, okay, what are the fears here? What are you really worried about? What is it that's the worst case scenario that can be? And just get it out there. Ask them to be really blunt. What is it? What is the worst thing that you can imagine happening? And really look at how realistic that may or may not be.
Yeah.
And again, breaking it down into realistic scenarios, so that they can see, actually, if they make a decision, okay, we may not know exactly how it's going to go, but there's also, there's always going to be a degree of a fail-safe here. It's not the end of the world. We might tweak things along the way if it doesn't go as we would wish, but that's part of the journey.
Yeah, I think that's a really good approach. And it was something that I learned on an EU exit, was that uncertainty was around not having enough information, because things were steadily, constantly changing with legislation, etc. And I always remember I'd been trained on how to deal with uncertain situations and how to progress, but I'd never really got it until then. And it was that lack of information, and it felt quite overwhelming at times. And what got me through it was having such a good team that when I was feeling like that, I went to them and I told them, and then we would sit down and break it down, as you've described in a similar situation in your life, is break it down and just move forward a step at a time. And I think as well, if you take an agile approach, so if it doesn't go quite right, stop beating yourself up about it and kind of just change it.
Yeah. And I think that we can really be unkind, can't we, to ourselves?
We can.
That little voice in the head is telling us, oh, you're stupid, you shouldn't have done that, and then it will stop us and make things, much worse than they really are. So it is letting ourselves off the hook. It's about being kind, whatever happens, and it's still keeping that vision, isn't it, of what we want in our lives, wherever that, part of our lives that might be.
And it might just take you a little bit longer. You might have to take a detour or two, but you'll get there in the end. And I think when you get the detours, they often give you a bonus that you hadn't even expected, to be honest.
Absolutely.
And that's what you need to...
The surprises that come along.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so a life filled with wonder often requires breaking free from routine, because we do kind of get stuck in this routine, what's comfortable to us. So have you had any examples of where you've helped a client kind of step out of their routine, out that comfort zone, and embrace new experiences?
Yes. I'm actually going to take this way back down, though, to where people might be feeling particularly stressed, anxious, and overwhelmed, and where they, again, this is, even before we start to really look at the foundations, but I would always question and ask somebody where they are, what's going on in their life. So, what's their sleep like, how are they eating, all those things. But it is about putting what I do to support people, is little things that they can do, that they are able to do, because they are not going to tax them too much, so that they move forward. And for many, and this is, I am going really basic here, okay, but for somebody who is really stressed and overwhelmed, it would be their breathing, concentrating on their breathing. So obviously when we get stressed, and this could be for anybody in any situation, all right, so from doctors and nurses to CEOs or whoever I've had the opportunity to speak to, stress is the same impact on everybody. So our breathing changes and it becomes much more shallow. So obviously when we get more shallow, it's exacerbating any of the symptoms we might be experiencing. So simple breathing techniques would be one thing that I would say. Journaling. But you've mentioned change. What things would you put in to change things? It's simple things at this very basic level, which could be used at any point in somebody's life. Is if we're doing the same things, we're going to get the same results.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would perhaps suggest to somebody, think about where you have your meal. Which chair do you sit in? Change it. What cup do you drink your coffee out of? Change it. Look at your bedroom. If somebody's really struggling with their sleep or can't settle at night, is there anything that could be, a piece of furniture could be moved, or a different picture, or freshened up in some way. A route to work. If somebody's really struggling with going to work, or they're just not in a right place, how do you get to work? Is there another route that you could take? Could you stop off a little bit earlier and then walk the rest? So there's little things, change the perfume, different things that could potentially put in place, because on a deeper level, it's already different. So these are only simple things, but they're very easy for somebody to grasp hold of, and they're easy to put into place. So again, it's enabling people to have control. And as somebody progresses in their journey, then obviously they can take on bigger things, and the examples obviously would be very different. But those are sort of simple ways that I would, encourage people and support people.
I love that. And you just reminded me, many years ago, I was in a really stressful role, and my asthma was really bad. And they sent me to an asthma physio, and she said, you're breathing all up here and it's really shallow. And that was from the stress of work, in reality. So she took me through some breathing exercises, and I saw her for about 3 times. And the first occasion, and she'd slow my breathing down and make me breathe right through, excuse me, to my chest. I burst into tears, and all these emotions came flooding out around, you know, what work was like, how stressful it was. And what we worked out was that my breathing was so bad because when I was under stress, that's what I was doing. I was breathing up here. And so she taught me how to breathe when something was stressing me out, and wow, did it change the whole outlook. So
Absolutely.
they might sound small things, but they're actually really
Very
beneficial.
significant. Yeah, they're very significant, and they're simple things, but again, like anything, we need to do them. All right.
Yeah.
So we can have thoughts and feelings about where we're at, wherever we're at in our lives, but we can look at how we're feeling, but actually we have to do something about it. We actually have to put something in place, and it's the doing that makes the difference.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's really interesting, and that's really helpful. Thank you. So many people also struggle with their work-life balance. So how do you guide your clients to achieve a better harmony between their work and their life, so that they're getting the best from both?
Sure. Well, obviously, it's looking at what somebody is doing, isn't it? Their work hours and how their life is. You know, are they stressed? You know, what's going on? Are they feeling overwhelmed? Because obviously I thought about some of the questions that you might ask me earlier, and one of the things, certainly from a work point of view, certainly something that I know I've been guilty of, and that I can often see in other people, is that work can become a distraction. So we may put everything into our work environment because potentially we may be wanting to avoid other things going on. So that may mean that we get home later so that we don't have to deal with something. It might mean that actually we don't want to think about things else that might be going on. So I think to think about actually your life as a whole rather than just work and just, you know, other aspects of it is actually very important. You know, so what's going on in the rest of our lives, you know, whether that's, you know, our family life, our relationships, because it's going to give us an insight as to what's important about our job. I have worked with a lot of people, and particularly with men, who feel that their role is, you know, as a provider, that they feel huge responsibility to be able to provide for their families. And so they're working so hard, but what they're not is being with their families, and the time that's missing from that. So that can alter different relationships, as it could for a woman. So the relationships at home could be struggling because they're not there. But when they start to talk and people can start to actually look at their lives, and very often somebody may become unwell and need to take time out, like have a medical certificate, it's only then that they can actually start to see the impact of, you know, being top heavy with their job, or not doing so well with their work and being top heavy with their leisure and their lifestyle. So again, what's going on there? Why are they perhaps avoiding things in their work? Maybe that's a relationship in the job, or, you know, the management or the job they just don't want to do anymore. You know, so it's looking at everything, not being too specific on the job or the life in itself, but actually looking at what else is going on, what's behind all of this.
Yeah. So really drilling down to, you know, why am I doing this? What's going on around this to make me do this way?
What's the driver behind what is going on? And if somebody is really finding that they're spending a long time at work, but they're not happy, or that they're feeling unwell in some way, it's to look at, you know, well, what really is going on here? Do I want to do this job anymore? You know, is it too much? Am I finding it too difficult? Am I not focused? You know, and people, sometimes we just need to change stuff, don't we? We just need to, and our lives change, and perhaps being in that role now is not where, you know, that person needs to be. They may need to expand or move on.
Yeah, I think it can be all sorts of reasons. I can remember one role feeling very overwhelmed all the time, and it was only when I actually opened up to the people that I was working with, how I was feeling, that I moved it forward. And that feels hard, doesn't it? That feels vulnerable. And I think we need to stop being so frightened of being vulnerable wherever we are, because how can people help us if we don't tell them?
exactly. Yeah. Vulnerability is really the key to change. It's actually acknowledging that we're not where we want to be. We may not be as happy as we want to be. Perhaps we're in relationships that are not suiting us, or in job roles, or that there are issues that we haven't addressed yet. And once we can actually acknowledge that and seek the help from, and I have to add in here for anybody, because obviously I work with really quite vulnerable people sometimes, or feel vulnerable, is when it's important to go and see your GP or seek outside professional help. Very, very important. But it's actually acknowledging that actually things aren't right, and accepting that. And acceptance is part of growth. Accepting that we can potentially change something and move on, or accepting actually sometimes we can't. And again, accepting that whatever we do, it's not going to make any difference.
And that that's a hard one.
Again, it's a very hard one. And it's perhaps even harder to let go of, whether that's in a work role, in a relationship, in something where we're at, actually letting go and knowing that we've got to move on for our own sakes is hugely important.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Yeah, all really good points. Thank you, Catherine. That's really helpful. Let's talk about resilience. So you've touched on it at the beginning. So going back to it, are there any specific ways that you teach your clients how to bounce back from challenges other than what you've already discussed? And how do you keep that resilient mindset? That would be one I would ask you, because you can do some work around it, but sometimes you can almost lose that ability to go back to that resilient mindset if you're not careful.
Sure. As we've already said, obviously the foundations are important, eating well, sleeping well, etc. They're hugely important. As we, change, things will change, and it's accepting that's the norm. And I think being kind to ourselves as well, and accepting others' help, and bringing other people into our lives who can support us. I think will help our resilience as well. And that we can't do it alone. We're human beings, and that we, I do feel that we cannot be ourselves by ourselves. We need other people to support us, to help us on our journey, and to connect with people. And I think, again, that's all the things that just help us bounce along, in a good way.
Yeah, and I'd like to reiterate, there was two things that you said to me that kind of stood out to me as well, was going back to that signposting. Because so certainly if you're a manager or a leader in the workplace, don't expect to have all the answers and signpost to the experts. I think that's really important. And then this kind of bouncing back, and it's gone. Dementia's setting in, I think. I don't know. I get these things, but it's gone now. But I'm sure it'll come back in a minute. But I think that the key one is the signposting. And that was it. The other one was surrounding yourself with the right people as well. And I think if you have positive people around you, that helps enormously as well.
It's absolutely imperative. And if we are in an environment, a work environment, a home environment, whatever it might be, where there is a degree of clickiness, there's an atmosphere, if things you just don't feel right, it's going with how you feel, you just sense that something's not quite there, that it's off. It's to actually trust ourselves and listen, to what's happening. And another thing that I do use a lot is, obviously with my background, is our bodies. Our bodies tell us stuff.
Oh, definitely.
So when somebody may have an issue, and it may come out as a physical ailment, it might come out as a physical thing, and I may or may not explore this, but very often I'm listening out for it. Say somebody's got headaches. That's very often when we're feeling overwhelmed, migraines, headaches, or we've got neck or back pain. Our backs are our support, literally our keeping us straight. If we have had the rug taken away from us, perhaps something's not worked out well, or somebody's not supported us, we can literally feel like our support mechanism has gone, and we may suddenly experience back pain. And that's happened to me when my support system a few years ago changed. I experienced acute back pain, which took a long, long time to heal.
Really?
For people who perhaps feel that they don't have a voice, they may struggle with sore throats. They may suffer with reflux that causes sore throats. Because, and again, if they struggle to speak up or have some issues, you may find that there's thyroid issues. So this isn't sort of a medical way of looking at it, but it is a way that I look at things, because I think that the body, we may not always hear what our body's saying, but when we become aware of the the ailments or the fact we're not well, because very often that's what presents first, we don't feel great, is actually to listen and think, well, actually, what's going on? I'm not feeling great here. Things aren't working out. What's going on here? What's the truth?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think your body does tell you, and it's a good idea to listen to it, but it's at the start, while it's not so serious, and do something about it. But we are kind of conditioned, oh, it's just your body, and it's just, it's age, it's this, it's that.
Sure.
And we actually...
I'd like to add something else as well, actually, because this is not an uncommon thing that when I speak to people, is that, and this is particularly with mums or people, leaders, people in the caring environment, or, where they have a degree of responsibility for other people, whether that's employees or children, spouses, whatever. And it's that, oh, I will do it. I will do this for Joe, or I will do this for so-and-so. I will do. And what I will often say to people, okay, I understand why you want to do that for somebody else, why it's important. But ultimately, you've actually got to do it for yourself. Because if you're not right, then you're not going to be feeling right. You're actually going to be absolutely good for anybody else.
Yeah.
So the priority is actually putting yourself first.
Yeah.
And that's not being selfish. It's actually being real. If we can't put ourselves first, if we can't acknowledge that actually we're important and we're worth investing in, we're worth valuing, then we're not going to be support anybody else around us, because we will be ill.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's a really important point. It's not being selfish at all. It's about looking after yourself, because if you can't look after yourself, then you can't help anybody else. And it's
Exactly.
as simple as that.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's a really good point. So the idea of a life coach might be new to some. And I know that not everybody's necessarily heard of a life coach even now. And so can you kind of paint a picture of your client's journey from the first session to achieving their desired transformation? So using your coaching experience, so kind of what's that journey like to them when they come and meet you for the first time, etc.
Sure. Yeah. Well, normally it starts with a phone call. All right. So I think that's the first step. It starts with a conversation. And that conversation may be as to whether I'm in a position to help or not. And if I am, then we would progress forward. So really it is, again, looking at what somebody's wishes are, what their goals are. I often use, and although in some terms it might seem as really quite a very simple tool and perhaps an old-fashioned coaching tool, but I've often used the wheel of life and get somebody to actually pinpoint from 0 to 10 where they are at in different aspects of their life. And why that's important is actually we can often focus on something, but actually that not be the real issue. And I'm going to bring up the weight that came up, weight management that came up earlier. Somebody may be on a constant diet. They might feel, well, I've got to lose diet. That's really important. But actually, it may actually relate to other things. So if we actually look at the other things, the chances are the weight is going to sort itself out. So my sort of motto here is that unwanted weight gain is often a symptom of something else, another problem. And if we can look at the other problem, then generally it will sort itself out, whether that's overeating, whether we're stressed, whether actually there is a physical problem like the thyroid's not functioning properly, if we could look at that. So but it's looking at somebody's goals and wishes, keeping them realistic, looking at how they want to feel, what outcome does somebody want to achieve, I'm going to make this, again, bring this down really basic. So say, for example, somebody had an exam that the goal was to pass their exams, right? Maybe it was their A-levels or GCSEs or, you know, lawyers exams, whatever it is. And the feeling that they wanted to get, the outcome was that they wanted to pass it. They wanted to feel proud. They wanted to, you know, have that certificate on the wall. They wanted to feel, you know, really good about what they're doing. The important thing is as well, we do look at obstacles, you know, what could get in the way, you know, and being realistic about that. So yes, positive thinking has a place in our lives, but actually looking at the downsides of things is also important. So we look at, you know, what could go wrong, and make provision for that. So what could go wrong is somebody might not spend enough time on their studies. They may be doing other things and get distracted. So it's putting plans in place so that they actually allocate the right time to be able to do the studies, to then go forward and get that, and go forward and do their exam, and ultimately hopefully pass it. So that's the sort of very simplistic, but ultimately it's looking at somebody's goals or wishes, looking at where they are right now, what they would like to achieve, and putting plans, realistic targets in place, which are stretching somebody, not to a point that they're going to fail, but stretching them to just slightly outside their comfort zone. And like we said before, that builds confidence, builds self-esteem, and builds that resilience for when things don't go quite right, that they're able to bounce back. And energy, and just making small changes our energy. And it literally has a domino effect. And like I said, it can be quite a quick transformation where people go, oh yeah, okay, I get that now. Or it can be a more steady progress where people have to have time to let go of the things that have been holding them back.
Yeah. So, you know, when you were saying that, you immediately made me think of risk assessments in the business world, weirdly, because it's like continuity planning as well. You're assessing, and then you're putting steps in place to stop it becoming an issue. And that sounds exactly the same thing to me. All, again, really helpful, but we don't tend to think about it for ourselves, do we?
No, but I think it is important to acknowledge that things don't always go right, and just accept it, that actually that's part of the journey. And as we said before, the things that the uncertainty that can often come up can actually often be a bonus, because we may come across things we weren't expecting, and very often that is the case. But as we move along, and we do have to do things, you know, in order to progress. What I would add here is, if somebody has things that they would like to change, but they make a decision that actually it's not the right time now, that inaction is still a choice. They've made a decision, so it's still an important part. So they're aware of it, but actually not doing anything at this time is still part of the plan. And I think that's very important to address as well, that time might not always be right, and that things that might need to be done at a later stage.
Yeah, and that's a really good point as well, because we know ourselves better than anybody else. There's still a lot hidden from us, of course, even so. And I think about the Johari window and that bit that's obscured from everybody and us as well. But you know when things are right for you to do, and we need to tap into that intuition as well a bit more. So that is a really good point. So thank you, Catherine.
And have a real belief, actually. So again, you know, thinking about the vision that you hold, how you want to feel, you know, what you'd like to achieve, and actually have faith and trust in yourself that it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you. So final question, and then you can, if you want to, when you finish the question, you can share your links and how people can access you. That would be brilliant. Yes. And we'll put it in the description underneath the video as well for anybody listening. And yeah, certainly go and follow Catherine. She's got some great thoughts here, so do take that time out. So my final question to you is, effective time management is crucial for both personal and professional success. And it is, definitely. And so how do you assist your clients when they've got an issue with time management around how to prioritize and to achieve a more balanced and fulfilling life?
Sure. Again, I've got a habit of keeping things very simple. So I would often get draw a diagram, or get somebody to draw a diagram, literally of a square with 4 sections in it. I'm actually going to read this out as well, because I had to. This is one of the things that I do. So on the, you could look at things that are urgent and non-urgent, important and not important, and literally put whatever tasks or things that are going on into each box. Now, if it was urgent and important, then obviously we need to do it. All right. If it was not urgent but important, then it could be scheduled for another time. If it was not important but urgent, it could be delegated to somebody else. So who else can help us out? And if it wasn't urgent, it wasn't important, actually get rid of it, because it's just not worth having there. All right. So, and again, frees up time, frees up space, so that we actually get to do the things that we want to do.
Yeah, and that's a really good method, and I use that method, and it works really well. So great for sharing that. So thank you, Catherine. Do you want to share how people can get hold of you, please?
Yes. So I have got a business page on Facebook. So my name's Catherine Hall. I'm also on LinkedIn, and you can contact me at catherine@greenlightcoaching.co.uk. And I don't have a website, but my email, Greenlight, is actually there for a reason. I know it's quite a common coaching term to use, but it's actually giving people permission. It's saying, giving you the green light to say, you can have a life that you want. You can have the things that that you want in your life, whether that relate to, your relationships, your health, your wealth, your career, whatever that might be.
I love that. Thank you for ending on that note.
No
problem.
It's been
lovely having you here, Catherine. Really appreciate your time and your insights and your tips here, because there's a wealth of information there for people to pick up on. So that's it for today. We will be back next week with another session again. So do follow me and subscribe, please. And look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. That's it for today. Bye for now.
Bye-bye, Nicola. Thank you.